Dear students, welcome to lecture 17 in distributed systems. Today's topic is mutual exclusion. You have learned that there will be multiple resources which can be shared by number of processes in a distributed system, right? So there will be several resources in a system which must not be shared simultaneously by multiple processes. Means, for example, if there is any resource like printer which must be used only by one process at a point of time, means single process can use that resource, in which that resource usage should be restricted to all other processes, so that only one process can use that resource. This type of exclusiveness is called as mutual exclusion between the process. Means only one process will exclusively, completely or totally, you exclusive means completely or total, means total right on that particular resource at that point of time will be for one single process. After completion of the work of P1 process, then only that resource should be assigned to any other requesting process. So in program also we will have some sections of, means some block of code which should be accessed by exclusive access is needed in such a block of code, which are referred as critical sections. So these sections will have the block of code which should be used by only one process at a point of time. So for mutual exclusion is introduced because to prevent process from executing concurrently within their associated critical sections, means only all the process should not enter into the critical section at a time. How we can avoid it? Means with the help of mutual exclusion. So all the algorithms which are going to implement this mutual exclusion concept, means only one process will be there in a critical section, or only one process is sharing a non-shareable resource, means total exclusive access of that particular resource will be with only single process. So for that purpose, it must satisfy the following requirements. Any algorithms should satisfy these requirements. First one is mutual exclusion. Means, for example, there is a shared resource. So at any point of time, only one process should access the resource. That is mutual exclusion. Means a process, if a process is granted with the resource, then after completion of that particular process will release the resource. Release means it gives back to the pool of resources. So when it gives back, then only we can grant permission for usage of that shared resource to another process. Nothing is there to confuse here. Just if there is any shared resource, it should not be used by multiple concurrent processes. How many processes can share that resource at a point of time? Only one process. Then how other processes will get that shared resource? Means after completion of the currently executing process. Then only we should guarantee uh, that there is only single process executing in the critical section of code. And the second requirement is no starvation. Means every time if a process is granted the resource and it releases it, and always only one resource is granting permission, one process is getting the permission, means P1 is only always getting the permission, then all the remaining other process will wait in a queue. So we should see that there is no starvation. If there should be no long waiting time for all the processes. That is no starvation. Next, in a single processor system, how this mutual exclusion will be implemented in single processor system means via semaphores, the concept of semaphores, monitors and other similar constructs. These three we will have some integer values, and these are the concepts from operating system. So here we are dealing in distributed systems. We will cover the implementation of mutual exclusion in distributed system via three approaches. So these are the three basic approaches in which we can implement the mutual exclusion concept in distributed system. The first approach is via centralized approach, and second is distributed approach. The third way is token passing approach. We will see each one in detail now. In centralized approach, the name itself says that centralized. There will be one coordinator, and that coordinator is elected via election algorithms, which we will discuss in our next lectures. And one of the process in the system is elected as a coordinator. Means there are 5 number of process. Out of 5 we will elect one process as a coordinator, and this coordinator is responsible for giving the permissions for all the other process to enter to the critical section. So this coordinator will always coordinate the entry of to the critical section. If P out of 5 process we have said, if P5 is the coordinator, then P5 will coordinate all the entries of critical entry into the critical section of P1, P2, P3, P4. Okay. Next, each process that wants to enter the critical section must always seek permission from the coordinator. Say for example, if P1 is want to enter into the critical section, P1 should get permission from the coordinator. Here we have assumed it as a P5, like that. So no other process can enter into the critical section where the permission is not granted by the coordinator. When the coordinator will give permission means, if there is no other process currently in the critical section, means no process is running in the critical section, then the coordinator will immediately grant the permission to the requesting process. Means P1 will be granted permission if no process is already using that critical section. Okay, it is simple. If the resource is free, it will be granted. If the resource is not free, the P1 process has to wait until the currently executing process gets back from the critical section. Any number of process can concurrently ask permission for getting into the critical section. In such a case, means if P1 and P2 both are sending the requests to enter into the critical section at the same time. In such a case, the coordinator will decide depending upon scheduling algorithms. Means first come first serve, or how to schedule depending on priority or within time span, like that it will decide how to schedule the process to get enter into the critical section. So after getting permission from the coordinator, it enters into the critical section, and after executing a critical section, the process will exit from the critical section. While exiting from the critical section, the process must notify the coordinator. Why? Because the coordinator can grant permission to another process. So when exiting from the critical section, it is the responsibility of the process to notify the coordinator that I have completed my execution in critical section. See here one of the example, and this is the diagram illustrating the centralized approach for mutual exclusion. Mutual exclusion in centralized approach. So here we are assuming that there are 4 processes, and out of 4, one of the process is PC, that is a coordinator process. Means this PC will coordinate all the requests from the P1, P2 and P3 process. Here we are assuming that the system is granting the requests that comes in first come first serve order. The coordinator will maintain this request queue. You all know about queue. Which process comes first? It goes first. First in, first out. The data structure queue. So it maintains, the coordinator maintains the request queue. So whenever the PC receives a request message, it checks whether there is some process in the critical section or not. If there is no process in the critical section, it immediately grants permission by sending the reply message that you are granted the permission to execute in critical section. You execute now. You enter into the critical section. So soon when the reply arrives at P1, the P1 enters the critical section. Why? Because it got permission from the coordinator. Now, suppose that while P1 is in the critical section, here, see here, P1 requested no process in critical section. PC sent a reply that you can enter into the critical section, and P1 process is in the critical section. That block of code is executing by P1. When this process is in critical section, here it got a request from the P2 process. Third step is request. So in this case, can the coordinator can grant the permission? No. Why? Because already P1 is in the critical section. So PC will not grant the permission, as P1 is already in the critical section. So the PC will not send a reply, and it will be added to the request queue. So the status after 3. Initial status, there are no process. So P1 is granted permission. After that we got request from P2. So P2 is added to the queue. And again the third is completed, and the fourth message is requested from P3. So which process? And P3 also want to execute in the critical section. So P3 is aligned after P2. Why? Because we got request from P2 first. After P2 we got request from P3. So in a queue we can add elements from the rear side. So P2, P3 are ordered and they are in ready queue. Whenever P1 comes out of that critical section, P2 will go into the critical section. After completion of P2, P3 will go into the critical section. Like that, after fourth one, the P1 is sending the release message, means okay, I am done with critical section execution. That is release message. After P1 execution, we have to grant permission to P2. So the PC will send a reply message, that is sixth one, and again after completion it will send the release message, that is seventh one. As there is no other process, P3 is granted permission. So P3 is given the reply message that okay, now you can execute in critical section, and here ninth one is release. Okay, now the status of the request message after 7. There is no other process in the ready queue to enter into the critical section. Okay, this is the mechanism in centralized approach, where the coordinator is coordinating the process to enter into the critical section. So here mutual exclusion concept is ensuring, but the coordinator, if the coordinator fails, means due to some point single point failure, if any point single point failure, means if this system is failed, then there is no mechanism of checking. So one of the drawback of this centralized approach is this one, that is single point failure. So failure handling must be provided to detect whether the coordinator is failed or running properly. If the coordinator is failed, we need to elect another coordinator from the remaining process via election algorithms. Okay. So second type of implementing mutual exclusion is via distributed approach. So in distributed approach, the decision, what decision, which process should enter into the critical section decision will be taken by all the nodes which are in the distributed system. Mutual exclusion is distributed across the entire system. So all the process that want to enter the same critical section, they will cooperate with each other. So before reaching a decision on which process will enter the critical section, it depends upon the mechanism, that event ordering scheme, means if T1 is requesting all the other process that it will enter into the critical section, then all the other process should wait. Why? Because first event comes from the process P1, which we have discussed in the previous class about the event ordering scheme. So in distributed system approach, when a process wants to enter into a critical section, what it will do? It will send a request message to all the other processes. What that message will contain means, it will contain the process identifier, means if P1 is requesting, then it will send a message to all the remaining process. What it will, that message consists of, I am P1. P1 identifier, name of the critical section, means which part of the critical section it want to execute in which process. Okay. And the third one is unique timestamp generated by the process. In order to order the request messages from all the other process, this timestamp will be useful. If P1 and P2 are requesting messages, if P2 has sent the request message first, we can know it via timestamp. So what the all the other process will do means, on receiving that request message, the process will immediately sends back a reply to the sender. Means P1 sent a request message. If there are three processes, P2 and P3, again sends a message, or it will differs sending a reply message based on the following rules. Means if the receiver process is itself in the critical section, means it simply queues the request message. Means P2 received the message from P1. P2 is already in the critical section. In such a case, P2 will add the process P1 to the queue. Okay. And the second one is, if the receiver process is currently not executing in critical section, but it is waiting for its turn, means P3. P3 is there, for example. P2 is executing in critical section. In such a case, the first one, P3 wants to execute in the critical section and it is already in the waiting state. So it compares the timestamp. So P3 compares the timestamp with the P1 message. If the requested message timestamp and compare it with the own request message timestamp, that is P3's timestamp. Whatever is less, it will get the chance. So if P1 timestamp is less than P3 timestamp, then P3 voluntarily gives the chance to P1. Like that, the lower timestamp will get a chance of executing in critical section. So if a receiver is not in critical section or not even in waiting state, it immediately sends back a reply message. Okay, you can execute, I have no problem. Like that, it will send a message. So a process that sends out a request message keeps waiting for reply messages from other process. So after it finishes executing in the critical section, it gives reply messages to all the process in the queue and deletes them from the queue. This is the scenario we will follow in distributed approach. With the help of this diagram, you will understand better. See here 6.7, there are 4 processes P1, P2 and P3 and P4. So P4 process here it is visible that it is already in the critical section. So P4 is already in the critical section. P1 and P2 want to enter into the critical section, so they have sent the request messages. P1 has sent the request messages with timestamp is equal to 6 and P2 sent the request message that I want to execute in critical section with the timestamp is equal to 4. So here which process should get access? P2. Why? Because the timestamp is lower than P1 process. Okay. So P2 will get the chance to execute in the critical section as it is having the timestamp 4, which is less than the timestamp of P1 request message, that is 6. Okay. So P2 got the chance. P4 to P2 control has been transferred. P4 is exiting from the critical section and it is sending OK to P2. So it has added it to the queue. P1 is added to the waiting queue. It is in the waiting state. So when process P2 exits from the critical section, it gives back to the message OK to P1. That is this one. P2 exits from the critical section, so it gives OK to P1. So P1 process will enter into the critical section and it executes the block of code in that critical section. So this algorithm also guarantees mutual exclusion, means only one process is executing in the critical section. Why? Because a process can enter its critical section only after getting the permission from all the remaining process. We have seen from the remaining process, if it gets permission, then only it can enter into the critical section. And furthermore, this algorithm, if we are having n processes, the algorithm requires n minus 1 request messages. So overall, we should have sending messages between the processes are 2 into n minus 1 messages. However, this distributed approach algorithms also suffering with some drawbacks. They are, so the drawbacks are, first one, suppose that system have n processes. So the algorithm is liable to n points of failure, means there might be a chance of n points of failure. Why? Because if one process is failed in the entire system, it cannot send a reply message to the requested process. So what the other process will think means the process has not get chance and deny of the messages happen. So there is no permission for me to execute the message. It will think like that. P1 process sent a request to P2. P2 is actually crashed, failed. But what P1 will think means P2 is not granting permission for me to execute. So the process has to wait indefinitely. Why? Because P1 does not know that P2 has been failed. This is one of the drawbacks. So Tannenbaum proposed a simple modification to this algorithm to solve this problem. What is this means? Instead of remaining silent, okay, normally, P1, P2, P3 process are there. What they will do means, if they are granting permission, they will send OK message to the remaining process, to the requested process. If it is not granted, permission is not granted, then it will send permission denied message. So that if both of the messages are not yet received, then the P1 process can think that P2 process is failed. In such a case, we get a chance of getting from the infinite waiting state. So when the process receives a permission denied message, P2 send permission denied message. So P1 may think that it can wait till it gets a OK message from the P2. And second one, another drawback is this algorithm requires the identity of all the processes which are participating in mutual exclusion, means P1, P2, P3, so on process are there. The algorithm should know all the process identities which are participating in this algorithm. So it is somewhat complex and we should keep track every time. It may update dynamically, some other process may add into the distributed system mutual exclusion process. So we should keep track of all the process. It is another disadvantages, means updating of the membership list is difficult. And the third difficulty is, as we have said before, that in a critical region we want there will be an exchanging of 2 into n minus 1 messages in the system for having n messages, means there is a waiting time may be large if there are many to process in the system. So this algorithm is only suitable for small group of cooperating process. Some improvements are being done to this algorithm. For this algorithm, this algorithm uses an idea of majority consciousness, means it will not take permission from all the processes. It will take permission from majority of the other processes. If there are 20 processes, majority of process, not all 20 processes are considered. This is one of the modification. It will consider the majority of the process. We will not take the complete process permissions. We will take only majority of the process. And the third approach of mutual exclusion is token pausing. So, mutual exclusion is achieved by using a single token. You all know token, right? When you are having token, you can get the money from the counter. Like that, a token is circulated among the processes. One token is circulated, passed in a system. So what is this token means? It is a special type of message, and whoever holds this token can enter into the critical section. So for correctness, all the processes in the system are arranged in a ring structure, and the token is circulated from one process to another process in a round format, in a ring format, and it follows only one direction, that is either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Whatever it might be, it should follow the same direction every time. And the algorithm works like this. When the process receives the token, it checks if it wants to enter the critical section or not. If it wants to enter into the critical section at that point of time, it keeps the token and enters the critical section. When it exists from the critical section, it will gives back the token to the neighboring process, and the token is passed along the ring. So the process can enter only one critical section when it receives the token. Means by keeping the token, whatever the critical section code it want to run for 1 day or 2 days, it should not do like that. It should do, or it should execute only one critical section code after receiving the token. If it want to execute further critical sections, then it has to wait in the ring for the token again, So if it does not want to enter into the critical section, means this one is the token is circulating. If it wants to enter into the critical section, it keeps the token. If it does not want to enter into the critical section, what it will do? We don't want anything, then we will just pass it the token along the ring to its process, neighboring process. So when no process want to execute into the critical section, see here, none of the process is interested to enter into the critical section. What it will do, the token will simply circulating along the ring. Whoever wants will take the token. So here there is only one single token. Mutual exclusion is guaranteed by this algorithm. Since the ring is unidirectional, means either it will move in a clockwise every time or anti-clockwise every time. And the process is permitted to enter only one critical section. So the mutual exclusion is guaranteed, means it ensures that only one process is in the critical section. So here we may get the starvation stage, we may not get here, but this algorithm, the number of messages may vary from one message to an unbounded value. And moreover, if there are total n number of processes in the system, The waiting time may be from 0 to n minus 1 and 0 to n minus 1 messages are needed. Why? Because the actual entry may vary from the time needed to exchange the messages. 0 token passing messages are needed. How much they are needed means n minus 1 messages. So the algorithm requires handling of following types of failures. They are process failure, means if any process in the ring is holding that token and that process has been failed. In such a situation, a new logical ring must be established. A new ring must be established to ensure the circulation of the token among the other process. And there should be some mechanism to detect the failed process, and reconfiguration should be done dynamically when the process is detected that it has been failed. And the second one is lost token, means if the token itself lost in the ring, then it is need to generate a new token. Therefore, the algorithm must have the mechanisms to detect that whether the token is circulating in the ring or not. If the token is not circulating in the ring, then who has the token it should observe. If no process is holding that token, then it should think of that it has been lost and a new token should be regenerated. For this purposes, monitors are used to solve this problem. Means a monitor will check periodically, it circulates who has the token message. So this message will rotate around the ring from one process to another. So all the process will simply pass the message to the neighbor. When the process is actually holding the token, then it won't pass that who has token message to its neighbor. It keeps with it. P2 process, P1, P2, P3 process are there. Monitor sent a message who has a token message on the ring. P2 is having the token. So P1 passes to P2 as P1 is not having token. So it passes to P2. So P2 will not pass the message to P3 as P2 is having the token with her. So these two problems are who has token. Another problem is if the who has token message itself lost means, then we can handle such a situation with multiple number of monitors. So when a monitor detects that token is lost, it holds an election algorithm, it holds an election with the other monitor process to decide which monitor process will generate and circulate a new token. So these are the topics covered in this lecture. Mutual exclusion. Under this, what is meant by mutual exclusion means a single process will be in critical section, that is mutual exclusion, or only one process can share the shared resource, can use the shared resource at a point of time. So implementation of this mutual exclusion in distributed system is done via three approaches, that is centralized, distributed approach and token passing approach. And we have also discussed all the drawbacks behind these approaches and how to handle them. I hope you all understood these topics. Thank you.